BC Calculus, we're looking at our station activities. Here's problem number 5. This is just a basic fundamental theorem of calculus part 2 problem. I'm going to have to find an antiderivative, and actually as we're looking at this integral from 1 to 4, just want to show you this is really x to the 1/2, and this is minus 2x to the negative 1/2. Try to get every term as x raised to a power. Then we can take our antiderivative. This gets bumped up by 1. Add 2 over 2 would get x to the 3/2. When we divide by 3/2, we'd get 2/3. Likewise over here, we bump up this power by 1. We add 2 over 2, we'll get a 1/2. When you divide by a 1/2, you're really multiplying by 2. And of course, we're going to have to evaluate this problem from 1 to 4. But before we do, it's always a good practice to make sure we didn't make a silly mistake and take the derivative of what you just found. You, of course, have taken this antiderivative. Look, if you were to take the derivative of this 2/3 x to the negative x to the 3/2, 3/2 comes down, it cancels the 2/3. Subtract a 1 and you're to x to the 1/2. You have radical x, which is what we want. Right here, you bring down your 1/2. Half of 4 is 2, so we've got a minus 2. And then you subtract a 1 from your power, you'll have x to the negative 1/2. You can see we're doing this correctly. The fundamental theorem, though, is now going to tell us to plug in our 4. So we'll have 2/3. This is 4 to the 3/2 minus 4 times, here's a 4 to the 1/2. And then we're going to say, well, subtract. Now we're going to plug in a 1. Say 2/3, and here's 1 to the 3/2 minus 4 times 1 to the 1/2 power. Well, we just have to crunch some numbers. First of all, please understand that 4 to the 3/2 is really the square root of 4. That's what that 2 is saying. And then you're going to cube it. Square root of 4 is 2, and 2 cubed is going to be 8. So this is 2/3 times 8, and 2/3 times 8, you'd get 16/3. We see right here, this is the square root of 4, which is 2. 2 times 4 is an 8. So we have 16/3 minus 8. Here you're just going to have 2/3 and a minus 4, and you can distribute that negative, and you'd get negative 2/3, and a negative would turn into a plus. So you can see what I just did there. Let's combine the 16/3 and the minus 2/3. That's going to be 14/3. And negative 8 plus a 4 is going to get you negative 4. Well, it doesn't take you too long to finish this up. We just get a common denominator. 4, if we multiply by 3 over 3, we'd get 12/3. Final answer should be 2/3. And that is problem number 5.